Hello everyone. Today we will talk about adaptations. Normally, cells maintain homeostasis. When they encounter physiological stresses or pathological stimuli, they can undergo adaptation, achieving a new steady state and preserving viability and function. If the adaptive capability is exceeded, or if the external stress is inherently harmful, cell injury develops. Within certain limits, injury is reversible, and the cells returns to a stable baseline. However, severe or persistent stress result in irreversible injury and the death of the affected cells. What is adaptation? Adaptations are reversible changes in the number, size, phenomena, metabolic activities, or function of cells in response to changes in their environment. Physiological adaptations usually represent response of cell to normal stimulation by hormones or endogenous chemical mediators. Pathological adaptations are response to stress that allowed cells to modulate their structure and function and thus escape injury. Such adaptation can take several distinct forms. The first form of adaptation is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is an increase in the size of cell, resulting in increase in the size of the organ. Hypertrophy can be physiological or pathological, and is caused either by increased functional demand, named compensatory hypertrophy, or by specific hormone stimulation, that is endocrine hypertrophy. The massive physiological enlargement of the uterus during pregnancy occurs as a consequence of estrogen-stimulated smooth muscle hypertrophy and smooth muscle hyperplasia. In contrast, the straight muscle cells in both the skeletal muscle and the heart can undergo early hypertrophy in response to increased demand, because in the adult, they have limited capacity to divide. Therefore, the avid weightlifter can develop a repaired physique only by hypertrophy of individual skeletal muscle cells induced by an increased workload. Examples of pathological cellular hypertrophy include the cardiac enlargement that occurs with hypertension or aortic valve disease, smooth muscle hypertrophy in obstructive lesion, and the renal hypertrophy after removal of one kidney. Hyperplasia takes place if the cell population is capable of replication. It may occur with hypertrophy and often in response to the same stimuli. Also, hyperplasia can be physiological and pathological. The two types of physiological hyperplasia are hormone hyperplasia, exemplified by the proliferation of the glandular epithelium of the female breast at puberty and during pregnancy, and the compensatory hyperplasia that occurs when a portion of the tissue is removed or diseased. For example, when a liver is partially resected, mitotic activity in the remaining cells begins as early as 12 hours later, eventually restoring the liver to its normal weight. Most forms of pathological hyperplasia are caused by excessive hormone or growth factor stimulation. For example, if the balance between estrogen and progesterone is disturbed, endometrial hyperplasia ensues, a common cause of abnormal menstrual bleeding. Benign prostatic hyperplasia is another example of pathological hyperplasia induced by a response to androgens. Hyperplasia is also an important response of connective tissue cells in wound healing. in which proliferating fibroblasts and blood vessels aid in repair. Shrinkage in the size of the cell by the loss of cell substance is known as atrophy. When a sufficient number of cells is involved, the entire tissue or organ diminishes in size, becoming atrophic. Atrophy can be physiological or pathological too. Physiological atrophy is common during early development. For example, the uterus decreases in size shortly after parturition. The age process is associated with atrophy in tissues containing permanent cells, particularly the brain and heart. The common cause of pathological atrophy include inadequate nutrition, decreased workload, loss of innervation pressure, and loss of endocrine stimulation. In brief, atrophy results from decreased protein synthesis and increased protein degradation in cells. The last form of adaptation is metaplasia. Metaplasia is a reversible change in which one adult cell type is replaced by another adult cell type. In this type of cellular adaptation, cell sensitivity better able to withstand the adverse environment. Metaplasia is thought to arise by genetic reprogramming of stem cells, rather than transdifferentiation of already differentiated cells. Epithelial metastasia exemplified by the squamous change that occurs in the respiratory epithelium in habitual cigarette smokers. The normal ciliated columnar epithelial cells of the trachea and bronchi are focally or widely replaced by squamous epithelial cells. Vitamin A deficiency may also induce squamous metaplasia in the respiratory epithelium. The ragged, stratified squamous epithelium may be able to survive under circumstances that the more fragile specialized epithelium would not tolerate. Although the squamous epithelium has survival advantage, important protective mechanisms are lost. In chronic gastric reflux, the normal stratified squamous epithelium of the lower esophagus may undergo metaplastic transformation to gastric or intestinal type columnar epithelium. Metaplasia may also occur in mesenchymal cells, but less clearly as an adaptive response. For example, bone is occasionally formed into soft cell, particularly in foci of injury. That's all for this section.